Hi, everybody. Good morning from New York. It is 11 here, 02. And we're going to discuss what's going on in the crazy crypto space in the last couple of days. And I have here our favorite analyst, Mike McGlone, Senior Commodity Strategist at Bloomberg Intelligence. So first of all, good morning to you.
Hello, Danny.
Thank you for being available at such a short notice. When I saw what was going on, I immediately reached out. Couple of words about Mike before we start. Mike is a senior commodity strategist for Bloomberg Intelligence, a unique research platform that provides context on industries, companies, and government policy, available on the Bloomberg Professional Service at BI. At BI, Mr. McGlone specializes in the broad investable commodity markets. Mr. McGlone joined Bloomberg in 2016 with over 25 years of futures and commodity trading and investing experience, beginning at the Chicago Board of Trade. Prior to joining Bloomberg, he was a head of US research at ETF Securities, which, by the way, were one of our sponsors at some point. Prior to ETF Securities, Mr. McGlone headed the commodity business at Standard & Poor's Indices. His previous roles included head of future research at ABN AMRO and VP research analyst trader sales at Aubrey G. Lanston, IBJ Futures. Mr. McGlone has an MBA from DePaul University in Chicago and Bachelor of Sciences and Arts degrees from Illinois State University. He's a CFA charter holder and has earned a financial risk manager designation. So good morning to you. And I guess my first question is, what the hell is going on?
Hello, Danny. Well, this doesn't feel like morning much anymore. I'm working from home today because radio asked me to do an early hit. And guess what the subject was, as you might suspect. But just I may have to make your timings impeccable, because just a few minutes ago, Bitcoin was around 41,000, and now it's 38,000 because China reiterated, at least the news stories hit the tape, that China reiterated there's restrictions. There's headlines out there that they're going to limit exchanges, limit mining, and the same old thing, as you'd expect from an authoritarian state that has major issues with free flow of capital. So the market's back down again, and then again, that's what's happening. But I look at it as that's just how significant Bitcoin is. It's the world's second largest economy, which we remember, those of us who grew up during the Cold War, has major issues with the rest of the world and free flow capital and real money moving around and freedom of discourse. Has a problem with Bitcoin. It's probably a good reason to show that Bitcoin is that significant.
Get it. And what do you think is headed our way now? I mean, how do you find the current Bitcoin price today, Ethereum, that is basically half of what it was just a week ago? How do you see that?
Well, Ethereum's still up almost 300% on the year. So remember, at the end of the year, around 800. On the screens right now, it's 2,500. And I did a recent note on it. I pointed out it was quite expensive as it approached 5,000. On most every basis I looked at, I was comparing it less to Bitcoin and more to the broad market. It was just near the peak from 2017. So it's reverting, and let's keep in context what it's doing. It's a bull market that's backing up. 2,500 last. People just have to remember where it ended last year. It was almost the same price that Bitcoin started at the beginning of 2017. So I still think it's on path for that trajectory, which means it could stay around 2,000 to 3,000 until October and still get, if it follows that 2017 trajectory for Bitcoin. So the key thing about Ethereum is for a week now, I've been trying to publish a Bloomberg primer on Ethereum. And I have been, kind of got a little bit delayed by this volatility. But the more I dig in, the significance of Ethereum is we know it is the building space. So there's potential for flipping where it could become the number one in terms of market cap, but smart contracts, decentralized, DeFi, fintech, and digitalization. For instance, the world's most widely traded cryptocurrency on the planet, that's Tether. the digital dollar. That's the Ethereum token. Uniswap, the decentralized exchange. That's the Ethereum token. So I'm bullish on Ethereum fundamentally. It's just prices got a little bit too far extended. And I think the same thing about Bitcoin. On the year, let's just say the Bloomberg Galaxy Crypto Index, which measures basically about the top 12, I see it right now up 120%. Yeah, that's a lot if you consider, put ourselves back 6 months ago, and if I had told you now that the BGCI would be up over 100%, you'd say, wow, it's a big move. The only difference is it was up over 250% about a month ago. So we're pulling back. I think it's a dip in a fundamentally sound bull market. And yes, there's significant signs of speculative froth. And Dogecoin, I think we're going to go down in history as, we look back at this from the future, we're going to say, oh, that was kind of a sign of a peak. Dogecoin reaching market cap number 4 on coinmarketcap.com and about $90 billion.
We lost you for a minute,
for something that's basically a joke. So to me, that's what I see. It's a correcting of a bull market. And I think the way it's going to pan out when the dust settles is Bitcoin will be one of the better performers to continue to do what it's doing. It's becoming a digital version of gold or digital reserve asset. We're going digital, and basically we'll have to shake it out a little bit, but Ethereum should be okay.
I hear you're getting caught from time to time. I don't think we heard the last sentence very well. I think you said that Bitcoin, you still see it as a good investment. Of course, by the way, we don't recommend any kind of investments here. We're just trying to figure out what's going on. So he's saying that in the long run, both Ethereum and Bitcoin, you think are, if you believe in this sector, are good investments in the long run?
Yes, I do. And I was cut out partly because I have a major data feed from Bloomberg, so I cut that down. Hopefully that'll help with my bandwidth, and we'll be able to have a better stream.
Now it's great. Now I hear you well.
Yeah, so I have too many things printing on the same screen at the same time, so that's probably better. Yeah, so I see that we've had a bull market that got way too extended. It's corrected. It's backing into good support, i.e. Bitcoin dropped near 30. 30 to 40 was the range in Bitcoin before Tesla made its allocation in February. It popped up to 60. The speculative excess has really kicked in, got way too expensive, backing down to near 30 and hovering in near 40 is, to me, what we should expect. And one thing to note is Bitcoin 60-day volatility dropped to the lowest of the year just a week ago. So now it's picked up. But I think what Bitcoin's done is it's a bull market that's correcting. And, we've all been waiting for some reason for it to go down. But to me, this is a really good reason for it to sustain the upward trajectory. What's really happened lately is they're using this excuse of China, but that's not really new news. I mean, I think China's beating on it hard. And the speculation in the crypto chat on Bloomberg today was that because they want to buy it. It's kind of ironic this stuff comes out at 11 o'clock a.m. in the U.S. when China is at 11 p.m. at the moment, but oh well. That might be a bit of a plant. And, there was a little bit of pushback on the US ETF, which to me is a matter of time. ETFs, I should use in plural. And, so Coinbase might have marked the peak for now, but to me, the fundamentals for Bitcoin remain quite solid.
Got it. Now, one of the questions I'm getting here is, how do you see Matic, for instance?
How do I see what?
Yeah. How do you see what's going on there? I lost you again. You froze for a second. Yeah, Matic.
Matic. I don't know what Matic is.
M-A-T-I-C. Are you
stock?
I'm sorry?
No.
You're not familiar with
I'm not familiar with Matic.
Okay. So somebody wrote us here, one of the families that's really investing seriously in this space for a long time. I want you to hear what they say and see what you think about it. They think that if you want to invest in that space, you should pick long-term holds, Ethereum and Bitcoin, some that is having momentum, and then some that are creating value, like DeFi tokens, and let it run for a few years. That's how they see the space. These are a couple of families that invest very heavily. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that's the way to look at it. What we're seeing right now is speculative traders getting stopped out. And I used to be one of those, used to be in the trading biz. And typically they'll provide some of the opportunities. But longer term buy and hold investors, I think, are supposed to focus on the opportunities for the big picture and think at least 5 years out. And this to me is a dip in the trend. So yeah, completely agree with that. And a diversified portfolio, sure. But Bitcoin is a primary sector. And the way I like to differentiate is Bitcoin is, well on the way becoming global digital reserve asset. That's simple, that's basic, that's the macro. And then there's Ethereum and most of the other spaces. Ethereum is more the DeFi, this rapid digitalization of finance. And then there's plenty of the other ones, but it's also maybe a focus on a bit more of an index that will have a survivor bias.
Now, I want to ask you, whenever I'm looking at the crypto world, it seems like everything is based on technical analysis. That some are saying it doesn't have much value; it just happens because people think it will happen. Not too much fundamentals, and what's more bothering, when you still have a market. First of all, if we're saying, and I believe, and by the way, you did mention Ethereum was expensive at the conference we held last week in New York, where you were there. Since you spoke, it's half of the price today, almost. But I want to ask you two questions. One, we're saying the market matured. Unlike 2018 and 17, it's not just the masses, it's the sophisticated investors, the long-term funds, the institutional. But if every small thing coming out of Tesla and every small thing that's going on, we see so much volatility and so much selling, how could that be the institutional wealth? Is that how they manage the money? They're not used to just get out of the market immediately when something's going on. So are we still in a market that's heavily controlled by the masses or people that are just trying to do a quick buck?
I think one thing that to note is we're still in a nascent technology. And I want to point out that this asset class that did not exist during the advent of the financial crisis, when it dropped on Wednesday, when Bitcoin dropped 10%, every asset on the planet was down. Only gold was okay. So to me, that's its significance. How important Bitcoin is now and how important cryptos are. But it's a very early technology. Did I cut out there? Yeah, it's a very new and early technology. So this is part of the maturation stage. And that's why you're supposed to risk adjust your weightings. I mean, Bitcoin's trading pretty high volatility. You don't put it as a significant portion of your portfolio, but as a smaller portion, it'll have a similar impact. And particularly if it does the typical 10, 100x that it has been in the past. And if it drops 50 to 100%, you're not supposed to care. You're supposed to allocate. So that to me is the way to look at Bitcoin and cryptos. Small portion of portfolio, nascent technology. But if you wait for the volatility to subside, it's going to come with greater depth, much more participation, and probably much higher prices. Then there's a risk of failure. Is it going to fail? The fact that China bans it, to me, shows how legitimate it is. The fact that when Bitcoin dropped 10% on Wednesday, and every asset class on the planet points out how much it's in the mainstream. And I look at it as, if it were easy, something's wrong.
Now, another thing that bothers, you see the regulators trying to figure out what's going on, starting to become tougher a little bit on the market. And you can understand them. I mean, again, looking from the outside in, when you see somebody like Musk, saying every day something different, whatever he feels like in the morning, influencing people's wealth, stability. In the old school world where I come from, I would have called it stock manipulation. And there are people that are not Tesla, right? That are not that known, but still have great following of hundreds of thousands, or even I saw right now that Sailor has 1 million followers. I don't know. They have significant influence, and people can just do whatever they want to manipulate those assets and do their trade. And how is the regulator looking at that? Is he even looking at it? Is he checking these guys out? Isn't that crazy dangerous that you're living in a place where the masses are just following every single word coming from any so-called influencer?
That is one of the major issues, as you and I both come from the same background. I started in the trading pits in the 80s, and I learned a lesson right away. You can make a lot of money in this space and not have to do anything illegal. And there is clearly signs of manipulation in the space. as far as potentially front running and things like that. I'm sure that happens. I mean, it still happens in other markets. It's just, this is such a wild west market. I fully expect some more regulation. Greater depth would really help. For instance, an ETF. I mean, they're successful in Canada now. They're successful in Switzerland, and the SEC doesn't have a good reason now not to launch them. And Coinbase is public, and we have actively traded futures on Ethereum and Bitcoin in the US. So to me,
we lost you at to me.
This is what you're pointing out is still some of the nascent technology factors that will be regulated, will be cracked down. If history's a guide, I sure hope they are and will. And that's why every time I hear about more regulations, it's better for the institutions, I think, to be allocating towards an index or Bitcoin. And right now we're in that stage of its early days. And so I like to compare Bitcoin volatility right now is very much similar to where gold was in 1980 and where Amazon was 10 years ago. And what has the price of Amazon done 10 years ago? I'll end with this. In 2001, a prominent Lehman analyst pointed out that Amazon was burning cash, is probably going to fail. Guess what failed? Lehman.
And yeah, I mean, would you agree that people give too much importance to everything that, for example, again, Musk is saying, I mean, why do we care what he has to say about his feelings about Bitcoin today or tomorrow? You have way larger institutionals, sophisticated banks and funds investing billions and trillions of dollars, well, billions of dollars. Why do people tend to listen to this guy that loves, you know, to be out there, loves to make a mess, loves the publicity around him, and others like him?
Yeah, well, I guess he just likes to have fun, and that's part of the noise of the market. It's best to ignore it. Some opportunities for entry and exit, and hopefully it'll eventually go where things have greater depth.
And one word about Dogecoin, again, something I never understood. How come a joke becomes an investment? I think you talked about the fact people are just using it as casino because it's fun, but billions of dollars thrown into something that is worth less, there's nothing there.
Yeah, I think it's just a matter of time. The market realizes Dogecoin probably marked the peak in the space. And it's something we're going to look back upon as massive speculative excess published on that, and actually potentially it can trickle down to signs of froth in the stock market. Dogecoin, and I mean, there's a massive amount of money printing. My son just got his stimulus check the other day, and he was joking about putting in Dogecoin. I'm like, please don't do that. So this period, let's look at this period a year from now. This is a major historic period. We're just getting out of COVID. We've had the most amount of money pumping in history. People have been locked up and they're looking to do things, and Dogecoin was just a perfect place to go and play and trade, and it just won that battle. Now it's going to come back to reality of, like I like to say, when people say, are you bullish crude oil? I'm like, I was bearish before COVID. What about COVID should make me bullish crude oil? And I was bullish cryptos before COVID. What's the difference now? The prices are just a lot higher. So to me, that's just part of the noise that we have to deal with. And I also look at it, what does it mean? What are the signals? Pretty good signs of froth, but Bitcoin I'm seeing is coming back to really good support levels in an enduring bull market.
Now, I know you don't have a lot of time and you were kind enough to be available at such a short notice. I will just ask one question we see here from one of the folks here. How much at risk is Bitcoin from continued, that's the same thing. Basically, I asked you a little bit, how much at risk is Bitcoin from continued comments by the likes of Elon Musk, and has the market already priced in his varied sentiments?
So that's a key thing I just published on today. One benefit Bitcoin has versus a stock market.
We lost you.
It's been outperforming the stock market through its history, but it's had
Mike, if you can start again.
One key benefit Bitcoin has, it's had a 50% correction within an enduring bull market. The S&P has not corrected more than 10% since the low. So what's the outperformance potential likely? I think it's supposed to just continue. Bitcoin's continue outperforming the stock market. Now, as far as all the comments and things, I don't know, but I look at them as the fundamental bull market. Bitcoin, the tides dropped together, not so much the stock market, but let's look at an iteration here. If the stock market, I should say, when the stock market finally gives up some mean reversion period, which will happen, all the whole tide, the whole world, all assets will decline. It's just a matter of time because every correlation is all moving, is moving towards one with the stock market. It's pulling everything up. I like to show crude oil. Crude oil has virtually no chance to go higher unless the stock market goes out. So here's the iteration. Stock market declines, everything goes down. What does that mean? It means massive amounts of fiscal monetary stimulus. And what's the main support for Bitcoin? The macro. There it is right there. Bitcoin and gold. Stock market keeps going up. Bitcoin has a high beta. Bitcoin outperforms. So to me, it's potentially a win-win for Bitcoin. The key risk, not what we've seen lately. Key risk is some kind of technological glitch. What we've seen lately is this crackdown on the energy. Always got to remember, that's just, I really appreciate Mr. Musk pointing out the strength of Bitcoin. It's just that massive amount of energy it uses. That's because it's so strong. It's decentralized. It's the source of that energy that matters. And it's increasingly going renewable. And the fact that it might be banned or pushed away in China means it's all going renewable because it's really, really fitting for that intermittent power you get from renewable sources. So Bitcoin's going that way, but it's how strong it is. And then what's happening with China? They're just pointing out how significant this asset is by limiting their citizens who are far from free from having access to what the rest of the world has and what the most unbanked in the world now have a way to really preserve some of their wealth that they haven't ever had in history that's safe and easy. It's easy to transport. Like gold's difficult and hard to get. Any person in the world with a smartphone, any type of access to internet now can get access to Bitcoin. And
to sum it up, you think this is panic or are there real fundamentals that can explain this loss of, 20, 30, 40% in different coins? Or do you think it's a combination of overshooting or how would you sum up what
all the above? Speculative excess has got excessive. Dogecoin, a good indication. Bloomberg Galaxy Index is still up over 100% a year. 250% was way too much. Ethereum was a key leader on that. I view this as a dip within an enduring bull market. There's going to be a period of dust settling. We all knew there's about 10,000 cryptocurrencies on CoinMarketCap.com. Last year was 5,000. We know that's due for a washout. But the way I see it is these are where the market comes and tests for, it needed a good test and it's getting it. I fully expect Bitcoin to survive and do well. I don't see it getting much below 30. But, if the stock market goes down, there's not much, everything's going to go down initially. It's what happens when the dust settles. And I view this volatility as opportunities for the more buy and hold investors. Let the speculators beat themselves up. And to me, this is just speculative access is getting stopped out.
Great, Mike. Anything else that you can add about your overview of the markets that we haven't discussed?
Yeah, to me, this is the key iteration, is how we get through this. Let's look at this from the end of the year. At some point, if the stock market keeps going up, well, Bitcoin has that higher beta. It's almost guaranteed to keep going up. At some point, if we get that way overdue mean reversion to the stock market, everything goes down, but Bitcoin's probably going to benefit because what was the key thing that happened on Wednesday is gold held in there. And because we know stock market goes down, there's only one thing the Fed and every fiscal monetary authority on the planet can do, and that's just print a lot more money. It's all they can really do, which means Bitcoin and gold probably going to be most beneficiary, and you just can't hold gold anymore without having Bitcoin in the same bucket.
Amazing. And maybe one last question. How do you see the future when it comes to the pollution of Bitcoin? Do you think this will get solved somehow?
Oh, yeah.
You think I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Oh, yeah. It's clear. I'm in my home right now. I have solar panels. Installed them 8 years from now. It's going to be everywhere. Can you still hear me? I think I had a little internet.
Yeah, you were cut a little bit. If you can repeat.
Yeah, I got to fix it. So the whole world is going renewable. It's just a matter of time. And it's not a linear trend. It's going convex. All power sources are switching to renewable because it's cheaper now. It's cheaper now to produce electricity with solar. The problem is the storage and the intermittent factor. That's ideal for Bitcoin. It's just a matter of time. And Bitcoin's helping accelerate that process. So I'm not worried about that. Again, the use of energy has been the example of mankind advancing the history of the world. It's that source of energy. And for Bitcoin, it's increasingly going to renewable sources by normal factors, by just cost. It's now cheaper to use to produce electricity with solar in most places on the planet.
And maybe one last question that I get here is, how do you see the future opportunities, opportunities about other cryptos like Ripple, Monero, and others?
Yeah, I look at the market with an index. I like to use Bitcoin, Ethereum. I watch Tether for indications of digitalization of money, and then the Bloomberg Galaxy Crypto Index. I use an index. So let the index have that survivor bias. Trying to pick the winners is, sorry, it's not that good.
And one last question. Mike, what is the one thing that will cement Bitcoin as a mainstream asset, as SEC approved ETF, or Wells Fargo or similar accepting Bitcoin payments? You want me to repeat that?
Part of it, I think the key thing that's still a significant bullish dangling carrot is the potential for the launch of ETFs in the US, which I view as a matter of time. That will be, until that is what I don't see Bitcoin significantly bearish.
And I couldn't hear your last sentence.
Until ETFs in the US are widely disseminated, it's hard to be bearish on Bitcoin.
And when do you see Wells Fargo and others accepting Bitcoin payments?
Oh, just a matter of time. But it's not payments that matter. I mean, do they accept gold for payment?
That's a good point.
Payment doesn't matter. It's using it like you do bonds, gold in portfolios as an asset that you might never sell. I view Bitcoin as a collectible.
Got it. Well, Mike, I highly appreciate you being available at such a short notice. We had a great half hour coming. I think people down a little bit about the future. And I would like to thank you again. And I'm looking forward to see you at our in-person conferences as we've had, as we were so fortunate so far. And I believe on June 15th, we will have you again. I'm going to have the mayor of Miami, Soares, a great guy that is allowing, we're talking about acceptance of Bitcoin, is allowing the citizens of Miami, right, to pay in taxes in Bitcoin. And
awesome. Well, that's thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to meeting him, and I'm actually in the process of moving to Miami soon.
Wow. Okay. So you'll be ready for our Art Basel pre-conference. Every year, right before Art Basel, we have our conference in Miami to finish the year on a good note. Thank you so much, Mike, and enjoy your weekend.
Thank you. Sorry about the internet connection. I got to probably reset my router or something.
No worries. Thanks a lot, everybody.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.